Hello everybody. Let me first briefly introduce myself. My name is Peter Muik. I have a software company that is developing solutions for the billing industry. And I would also like to mention that my company has been one of the founding members of the German-speaking chapter of Billing Smart. What I would like to demonstrate to you is that it makes a lot of sense to use the Billing Smart data dictionary, or bSDD in short, to store the information requirements for your projects. We have developed a suite of tools for Autodesk that allows to use the content you have uploaded to the bSDD in a very straightforward and practical way. All the tools can be launched with the so-called Tools Integrator, which also visualizes the flow of information. It contains 3 groups of tools. Those to download the information from a source. Then these tools are to map the content of the information to the entities or elements in the application. These are the buttons to actually start the BIM authoring tools. In this case, it's Revit and Autodesk Civil 3D. In order to show to you that we're actually starting from scratch, I will start this tool now, which is used to map the components from the data dictionary to the elements or entities in the model of the tool that we are going to use, so that you see that list of components currently is empty, and there is the list of the DXF classes, which are the entity types in Civil 3D. You could also do the same thing for Revit, and here you get the list of predefined categories that the application supports. But in Civil 3D, you don't have a fixed list of entities because applications can define their own entities. So we would create that list in a later step by actually using a model opened by Civil 3D. But at this point in time, the list of components is empty because they have not yet downloaded anything from the bSDD. So this is the next thing that we will do. We'll go to the tools that are available for download. The first will be from the Austrian Standards Property Server. This one is for the bSDD, and the tool with the Excel symbol is to create content which has been developed using Excel sheets. I now start the tool to download content from the dictionary. First I need to establish a connection, and then the list of languages will be downloaded from the server. And from this list, I select the language which is going to be used as the local language, which in this case is going to be French. There is also a tool to search for content and to create a list of elements to be downloaded. But in order to shorten things, I will use a prepared file that contains 2 components, identification and pipe. And this list of file is contained in the file called Beijing for this presentation. So I open this file. Before starting the download, I also need to select the context to be used for the download. The context is a very powerful feature of the bSDD because it allows to use components and properties in different configurations. And the context I want to use for this download is a context called Bridge, which has been developed in France for bridge projects. So I select this context and I start the procedure, and this will download the 2 components, its properties, and also the measures, and if available, a list of values which are associated with these components. The next thing I want to do is to create the list of element types which are available in Civil 3D. I click on the symbol for this tool, and this will switch to it, and we see a model of a railway project that I had loaded before. And then I click on the command that is used to get the list of entities, and when it's completed, I get a message that 30 new element types have been added to the list. The next step is to create a mapping between the elements from the dictionary and the elements from the BIM authoring tools. On the right-hand side, you see the list of elements we have downloaded from the dictionary, and on the left side you see the elements from either Civil 3D or the categories from Revit. Let's start with Civil 3D, and I will map the identification component with an entity called corridor, which identifies a railway project, and the other element is the pipe, which will be mapped to the pipe element of Civil 3D. Let's do the same thing with Revit. I will map the identification component with the project information, and I will map the pipe to the pipe element in Revit, the pipe category in Revit. And then I save and close these assignments, and we now have mapped the components from the dictionary to the elements and categories in Civil 3D and Revit. So now we go back to Civil 3D and use the second command that has been implemented, and that is the command to actually create the property sets. So here we have the list of entities which have been assigned to components from the dictionary, which is corridor and pipe. When I click on one of those, it will list the property sets which have been downloaded. But before actually creating the property sets, we should also make sure that the properties that we create have the appropriate data type, because we have strings, real numbers, integer numbers, and so on. And therefore we need to make an assignment to the data types or the measures which have been found on the dictionary and assign the data type to them. So one is the name of identification, so that obviously seems to be a string. So I say this is a string. And the second is numerical value, integer number. So now I say this is a data type integer. And then when I click on the property set, so for example, overrode by identities, and I say create a property set, it will create this property set, and then I actually can use it in Civil 3D by clicking on the corridor. And then I say extended data, and I say add a property set. So this is the overrode by identities property set that had been created before, and I open it, and then I can actually end the values to these property sets. Before moving on to Revit, let me quickly demonstrate another tool that allows to define the information requirements for project stages. You define the name of the stage, in this case preparation, and then you select a component. You will see all the properties assigned to it, and then you can select either all the properties or a subset of them to be used for that particular stage. Let us now switch to Revit. The model you see is from the so-called Grand Paris project. In Revit, the procedure is a little different because it works with a list of parameters instead of property sets. In Revit, you can create a mapping between the properties required from the dictionary with the parameters Revit provides. So let's open the mapping dialog. When you select the component, you see the list of properties required from the dictionary. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, you see the list of parameters Revit provides. So you can now create a mapping. So for example, we have the parameter pipe material, which is required, and we can assign this parameter, the material parameter Revit actually provides as built-in parameter. Or you can create a parameter in Revit with the same GUID as the property from the dictionary, which we want to do for the life cycle phase, which is a text parameter actually. And then we create it, and it is automatically assigned. And then we save this modification to the database. And when we create an IFC file, it will automatically include the property sets that we have defined. So let me summarize. We have downloaded content from the bSDD. have assigned the content to the elements and categories from Civil 3D and Autodesk Revit, so that we are now able to create the IFC files with the required content. So the conclusion I would like to make is get started to develop the content for your BIM authoring software on the Building Smart Data Dictionary. Thank you for your attention.